A toast, my stepdaughter said, to the loser who signs the checks but will never be my real dad. After I'd raised them for 17 years, I calmly placed a key on the table. Her grandfather saw it, read the note, went ashen, and whispered, "Tell me you didn't." Chapter 1. 17 Years of Fatherhood. They say biology doesn't make a parent, love does. I had no biological children of my own, but for 17 years I was a father. I packed lunches, I coached soccer, I showed up at every school recital, every dentist appointment, every heartbreak. When I married Marie, she was a single mom of 2 daughters, Alyssa and Megan. Megan was 4, Alyssa had just turned 7. Her ex had disappeared. No child support, no birthday calls, no cards. I stepped in without hesitation. Not once did I ever call them Step. They were my girls, my family. Birthdays. I made them magical. College prep. I worked 2 jobs to make sure Alyssa could apply anywhere she dreamed. When Megan broke her leg, I slept in the hospital chair for 5 straight nights. Their mother Marie was always distant, polite, never passionate. I chalked it up to stress or burnout, never suspecting what simmered beneath her calm demeanor. I was the steady one. The rock. But recently, something shifted. Alyssa grew colder, Marie smiled more when her phone lit up than when I walked into the room. Conversations fell flat, laughter at dinner slowly disappeared. Still, I held on. For family. Then came Alyssa's engagement. I footed most of the bill, $28,000 in total. It was supposed to be a proud moment. A culmination of everything I had built for them. Instead, it became the night that shattered everything I thought I knew. Chapter 2. The Toast That Shattered. 17 years. The ballroom was shimmering. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks. Waiters in black vests weaved between white draped tables, pouring champagne. Marie wore a pale blue gown, her hair styled in soft curls. And Alyssa, my daughter, looked radiant in her wedding dress, every bit the princess I had raised her to be. I sat at the head table beside Marie. Alyssa and her groom Brian sat just across from us, laughing with their friends. Guests from both sides, including Marie's estranged relatives who'd never lifted a finger for the girls, mingled and toasted. I kept glancing at the gift box beside me. Inside was a key and a small handwritten note, a gift Alyssa would understand, one I had prepared with love. Then, the DJ tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, the bride would like to say a few words." Alyssa stood, she clinked her glass and smiled. "I just want to thank everyone for coming, especially my real dad, Brian's father, Richard. You've only been in my life a few years, but you've given me more guidance, more wisdom, and more love than I've ever known." Laughter, applause. I blinked. Alyssa continued. "And to the men who paid the bills." She turned toward me, raising her glass like a dagger cloaked in charm. "Thanks for signing the checks. But you were never really dad. Just the guy who happened to be married to my mom." The room went silent for a beat. Then came a few awkward chuckles. My stomach twisted. Marie didn't flinch. Megan stared into her lap. My hands were trembling, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I calmly stood up, reached into my coat pocket and took out the small gift box. I walked over and placed it in front of Alyssa. "A wedding gift," I said, my voice clear and calm. "For you." Then I turned to her grandfather, Marie's father, and handed him a copy of the note that was inside. As he unfolded it, his face changed. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands shook as he read the last line aloud. "Effective today, the $146,000 education and trust fund is revoked. The deed to the lake house has been reassigned. Ask her fake dad to cover it now. Signed. The guy who paid the bills." Gasps. Murmurs. Chairs scraped the floor. Alyssa's smug expression crumbled. Marie whispered harshly. "What did you do?" I looked her in the eye and replied softly. "Tell me you didn't raise her to humiliate me." She had no answer. And that's when everything started to unravel. Chapter 3. The fallout begins. The silence after the grandfather read my note was deafening. Alyssa stood frozen, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Brian looked at her, then at me, utterly confused. Her bridesmaids, unsure of how to react, awkwardly stared at the floor. Her grandfather turned toward her, shaking with anger. You told me he was just some wallet, he hissed. You told me he owed you, Alyssa stammered. He was. He never hugged me. Never said, enough, I said calmly but firmly. I won't sit here and defend myself. Not to a room full of people who clapped when I was publicly humiliated. Then I looked at Marie. She hadn't moved. Her face was pale. She whispered. You were really going to give her the lake house? I nodded. It was meant to be her wedding gift. Paid in full under my name but not anymore. And then I turned to Brian, the new groom, a young man who clearly hadn't expected any of this. Brian, I said, I wish you well. But if you marry into this, know what you're walking into. He looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. His father, the so-called real dad Alyssa had praised, stood up and said with a smirk, You're just bitter, man. Let it go. She made a choice. I smiled. Oh, I've let go, I said. I let go the moment she raised her glass and toasted the men who never showed up to her dance recitals, never helped with homework, never stayed up all night with her when she had a fever. That man was me. I did all that. And today, she declared I was nothing. People began to murmur. Whispers buzzed around the hall. Suddenly, everyone who'd laughed was now trying to look neutral. Or even sympathetic. Then came the final blow. I turned back to Alyssa and dropped one more bombshell. By the way, the college tuition fund you've been planning to use for your master's degree. That account was under my name too. I closed it yesterday. Her face collapsed. You can't. That's my future. No, I said. It was. Your future. Until you made it clear I was never part of it. Then I walked toward the doors, the room splitting around me like the sea. Marie called after me. Please, don't leave like this. We can fix it. But I didn't turn back. Because this was just the beginning. Chapter 4. Silence, regret, and a knock at the door. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. No music, no thoughts even. Just the low hum of tires on asphalt, and the ghost of my stepdaughter's voice echoing in my ears. To the loser who signs the checks. That line would have destroyed me years ago. But not tonight. Not after what I saw in their eyes when the truth came out. That night, I turned off my phone. Let the missed calls pile up. I poured myself a glass of bourbon and sat on the back porch, watching the moonlight dance on the lake I almost gave away. Almost. The next morning. My doorbell rang at 7:13 a.m. I didn't move. Then came the knocking. First soft, then rapid. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Dad, it's me. Please open the door. It was Alyssa. I opened the door but didn't say a word. She looked like a mess. Mascara streaked, dress wrinkled, shoes in hand. Like she'd walked the whole way. I didn't mean it, she said in a broken voice. It was a stupid joke. They said it'd be funny. Brian's idea. The toast. I didn't flinch. You said it with too much ease to be a joke. She stepped inside, uninvited. I panicked. Everyone was watching. And I thought, maybe you'd laugh too. You always do. I always did. I corrected. Then she noticed the envelope on the counter. The same one her grandfather had seen. She moved toward it. Is that? No, I said. That one's just a copy. The original deed was already transferred to someone who's never made me feel like a placeholder. She blinked. What? I took a deep breath. I signed the house over to Marcus. She froze. Marcus was my godson. Orphaned at 12. I mentored him, supported him, helped him through school. He never called me dad. But he always treated me like one. Respect. Loyalty. Effort. And that's what mattered. Alyssa's voice cracked. You gave away my house. No. I reclaimed my peace. Then Marie appeared behind her in the doorway, red-eyed and exhausted. Please. Talk to her. She didn't mean what she said. But I looked at them both and said, You raised her, Marie. She became exactly what you taught her to become. Entitled. Dismissive. Performative. I tried my best. No, I said, interrupting. I did my best. For 17 years. Marie sobbed. She's your daughter. No. She was your daughter. I was just the ATM. And then I closed the door gently in their faces. No yelling. No name calling. Just silence. Because silence, I've learned, hurts louder than words ever could. Chapter 5. The speech that changed everything. By the end of the week, the fallout had reached beyond the family. Apparently after I left the wedding, Marie and Alyssa tried to carry on with the reception. But whispers had started spreading. People asked where I was. Some even walked out when they realized what that toast really meant. And who I was to the family. The video had gone viral. Not of the whole wedding. But the exact moment Alyssa raised her glass and made the cruel joke. And then, a clip of her face when her grandfather read the note I left with the key. That moment. That silence. That regret. It was all over social media now, labeled under hashtags like "Stepfather deserves better" and "The men who walked away." Marie called again, this time from her office phone. Please, she begged. Just talk to her. She's getting threats. She hasn't eaten. The college is even reconsidering her scholarship because of the public backlash. She's 23, I said flatly. She made a choice. So did I. Marie started sobbing again, but I didn't soften. Because when I gave love, it was unconditional. When I gave money, it was sacrificial. When I gave them a future, it was with the trust they'd never throw me away like yesterday's help. But they did. Then the speech happened. A week later, my godson Marcus, the one I gave the house to, invited me to an award banquet. He was graduating law school with honors. He wanted me to attend. I didn't expect anything more than a thank you. But when Marcus got on stage, he cleared his throat and said, "I never knew my real father." He left before I could walk. But I was lucky. Because someone else stepped in. Not with loud promises or empty gestures, but with consistency. With quiet presence. With unconditional support. I call him my mentor. My godfather. My rock. But I want to say it clearly now, in front of all of you. You're my real father. Even if we don't share blood. This degree. This future. This name I've built for myself. It's because of you. The entire room stood in applause. I sat there, stunned. But whole. Epilogue. The men she chose too late. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon when I heard the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. My weekends were now quiet. Peaceful even. A far cry from the chaos and obligations that had defined the last 17 years of my life. But when I opened the door, there she was. Alyssa drenched, shivering slightly. Eyes red from what looked like hours of crying. And beside her stood a man I barely recognized. Her biological father. The man who had vanished from her life before she could form complete sentences. "Can we come in?" she asked quietly. I didn't move. I simply stared at them. Her father cleared his throat. I just came to support her. I didn't raise her. That was you. The words caught me off guard. They didn't absolve him, but at least he wasn't pretending otherwise. Alyssa held out a letter. Her hands trembled. "I wrote this," she whispered, "before I came. Because I know I can't say all this properly. But I want you to know, I was wrong. You were the only father I ever had. And I treated you like you were disposable. I took the letter but didn't open it." She continued, voice breaking, "I didn't know what I had. I was caught up in proving something to myself. That I could choose who I honored. But I chose wrong." Then she did something that shook me more than the graduation incident ever could. She dropped to her knees. "I'm not asking for the house back. Or the college fund. Or even forgiveness. I just want you to know, I remember every story you read to me when I was sick. Every project you stayed up late helping me with. Every hug I pushed away but secretly needed. You were always there. And I broke your heart." Behind her, her biological father quietly stepped back and waited by the car. He understood his place now too. I didn't say much, just nodded. Told her to go home, dry off. That maybe someday we'd talk again. But that day wasn't today. And as she walked back to the car, head low, I finally opened the letter. It ended with one line that made my chest tighten. If you ever need a place to call home again, I'll leave the light on. Funny. I had said that to her when she was 8. Terrified after a nightmare. Now she was the one hoping for a light to stay on. But this time I had already given that light to someone who never dimmed it. Marcus. The son who wasn't born of me, but who never once made me feel like a loser who just paid the bills. Final reflection. Sometimes blood doesn't make family, but gratitude does. And when you give your heart fully and receive betrayal in return, your silence, your absence, your peace becomes the loudest, most powerful revenge of all. Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice and share this story with someone who needs its fire.